I was relying on
Did
purpose.
you say a woman's Mekadesh herself? Like she marries herself?
I know. I'm sorry, Rachamim. The diktuk was incorrect. She
Either way,
made
they do
herself.
that now.
That's true too. That's true too.
Oh,
I had a lady before Yom Kippur who told me I just had a baby, and what's to do with nursing Yom Kippur. She didn't tell me that she had her baby. She's not married, and she had it from a bank. But I happen to have known about it from somebody else. So, you know what I mean? So nowadays, women take a lot into their hands. Right? From girls, she just got fed up with not getting a shidduch. So,
Is that
she just
really a
had
thing?
herself a
It's
kid.
happening?
Is that okay?
It's really hard to say that it's usher. I mean, if we allow it for married, if we allow Moshe allowed it for a married woman to do this with donor sperm, so Kol Shekin a single girl.
It have to be from a yid?
No, dafka not a yid.
Interesting. Well,
Whatever, man, that's different schmooze. Okay, so bottom line is Rachamim, yes,
One
she
second.
made.
She asked you a shaila and left that part out. That has to do with the shaila.
What does that have to do with the Shah? Nothing to do with the Shiloh. Who cares who the father is? You want to know if she has to fast, then you Kippur. Anyways,
Wow.
okay.
Whoever didn't log in today's daf missed that.
That's right. That's at
It
least
was
that's on the
worth it just for
recording.
that.
At least it's on the recording, right? Okay, Itmar. Yeah, so we're talking about a woman marrying herself off. Yes, Rachman, I'm going to say it that way. She's marrying herself off without her father's permission, right? So Katana Shiniskacha, the 3 lines down from the top.
that's a katana, not a woman. A katana or an
A
aura.
katana, I'm sorry, a girl. Katana Shiniskacha Shaloila Dasavi, without her father's knowledge. Amarav, Bein He, Bein Avia, Yechadin La'akiv. Her or her father can stop the Kiddushin. Meaning she can go back to the guy and say, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. You can't be married to me. Ravasi Omar, Avia Velahi. No, only her father. She can't. Right? Because she already gave herself up. But her father has rights over her. That's the Ace. That's the Kaiser. One of the Ravasi. So everyone has the Kaiser. Ravasi, Vamri, Lachia, Barav, the Ravasi. And some say it was Chiyarav to Ravasi. And mine, Yemayin, Avia. Oh, so we need a little background here. This is talking about where a guy was mefata a girl, right? He seduced her. So the din is that he's mechuyev to marry her. If the parents don't want, or the father doesn't want really, or she doesn't want, then he has to pay a knas. So it says in mind, the pasuk says in mind, you mind avia. If the father doesn't want this guy marrying his daughter, it's only if the father says he doesn't want. He atzma minayin. How do we know she herself? How do we know that she could also turn down the marriage? In mind, they'll double lashon. Mikol makom. Right? It doesn't make a difference who turns him down as long as the daughter or the father turn him down. So you see that the girl is allowed to refuse. Right? So Rav. So Rav said to them, ifcha. Don't go. Ifcha normally means the opposite, but here it means don't. Rashi says it's a davar she'enoi. That's not a proof. Don't think about. Don't go after something that doesn't mean anything. Because we could answer to you. Could go in shapita shaloi l'shum ishas. It's talking about a case where the guy was mafata her, right? He seduced her, not in order to marry her. He seduced her in order just to seduce her, right? Like what guys do, right? So therefore, of course, the daughter can say no. It's not like she said yes. Right? Meaning, if she said yes initially, right? If she said yes initially to marriage, so then maybe you have a proof that she's allowed to turn down. Here, she never said yes to marriage. She just was mafata, and that was it.
And this is with a katana?
This is with a katana, yes.
How does Ir Miklat never come into this kind of stuff? Don't these girls have fathers?
Yeah.
Mir Miklat is a person that was hiring b'shogeg.
Right, so he's saying the father's going to kill him.
Exactly.
I think Jesse means the father's going to kill the guy.
I don't
know if that's going to be
Miklat is not going to help him.
See, right. Well, he's going to do it. Maybe you got to understand how Jesse thinks, Rachamim. That's where Jesse was going with this. So we have we go back a long time, me and Jesse. I can tell you exactly where he's going with this, right? But and he would call it a shy gig in Jesse's mind. He's thinking it's a shy gig. The guy slept with my daughter. I'm going to kill him.
He slept with her
Right.
B'shogeg.
All he has to do is look at Jesse's daughter. That's it.
And yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, so and a Hanami. So he did it b'shay. Well, he didn't do b'shay. I'm sorry. He was mefater, but had nothing to do with marriage. So therefore, the daughter could say, "I don't want to marry you." Right? Pita shaloi l'shum ishas krabai. Right? Magana says, "What do you mean? If it's pita shaloi rishus, you need a pasuk to tell you that the father." I'm saying if he was mefater her, right? Should I say rishus? I said shaloi l'shum ishas. You need a pasuk to tell you that the father can say you can't marry my daughter. I mean, if it was done for marriage purposes, he goes over to this poor girl and says, "Hey, you want to marry me? Sleep with me? Great. We're married. Now as a chiddush, the father could say, no, you can't marry her. Fine, but if he just slept with her, stam for sleeping with her, so of course the father could say you can't marry her. The pasuk's telling you that if the father says no, then then he has to pay the knas, just like as if he's being mefater her for marriage, right? Okay, now Rabbi Yosef has the proof. So Amarle Rabbi Yosef, Achi, Hainu Tanin, if that's what you're saying, then this is what we mean in the Brisa. Maryu Marenu Loyli Isha. So it says that he has to this is the opposite. This is Maryu Marenu. He could make the guy who was Mafata, his daughter, marry his daughter. Shaticha Menu Kiddushin. Right? But you still need Kiddushin. The father could say, hey, buddy, now that you slept with my daughter, I don't want the shidduch crisis. She's ready together with a guy. You got to marry her. Finished, right? He's allowed to do that. Then pisas l'shum ishas Kiddushin lamli. But if he was mafater for isha, so what do you need Kiddushin for? Right? So elamai, it must be the case is talking about where he slept with her shaloi l'shum ishas. Right? Amalei Abaya said three. No, Abaya says no, it's not a proof because tricha Kiddushin l'das aviyah. We do need Kiddushin because we need Kiddushin for the das of her father. Meaning she gave in to being seduced, but the father did not. So therefore you're going to need Kiddushin for him. Okay. Now we had this, the next Mishnah we had this case of another weird case of being Mekadesh and Isha with a date. Right? And depending on what her terminology is, that's dependent on how much the date has to be worth. So Zak the Mishnah, Ha'aymer le'isha, Iskachili b'tim razu. He says to a woman, right? He says to a woman, be mekadesh me with this date. Iskachili b'zu. And then he said, be mekadesh me with this date. Date meaning the fruit, not on a date. Yeah. Im yesh ba'achas mehen. Shava pruta mikudeshes. If any of these dates has a shava pruta, she's mikudeshes. Bim lav, and if not, ain't mikudeshes. Then she's not mikudeshes because you need to have a shava pruta, right? Meaning you need to have a shava pruta on each one. Because why? Because he said betim razu, and then he said again bezu. So since he said bezu, that means you need to have at least one shava pruta for one date that's a shava pruta. But if he says bezu, but if he says be mekadesh with this one and this one and this one, then ye shava pruta bekula and mikudeshes. If this shava pruta with all of them, mikudeshes. Vim lav, ain't mikudeshes, and if not, she's not mikudeshes. Right. So that's the second case. We have two cases. One is if he says to her, timrazu, and then hiskachili bezu. So then each one is considered a separate. How do you call it? A separate transaction. If he says bezu, then we would combine all of the dates to be worth a shava pruta. Then the last case, Rishina, but let's say he gives her a date and she eats it. Then he gives her a date and she eats it. So Rishina. Each one, as he gives it to her, she eats it. She's not married until one of them has a shava pruta. So the Gemara is going to ask exactly which case is this going on. Is it going on the first case or the second case? But we'll see. The Zakti Gemara. Mantana Hiskachi. Who's the Mandama that says that when you say Hiskachi, it's considered two different transactions? Amarava Rab Shimoni, it's Rab Shimon the Amar Achiyam Shul Lachal Echad Echad. Till right, we had this case 2 days ago when somebody goes to a fellow and says to him, 5 guys go and accuse a guy of stealing, and he says, I make a shvua to all of you guys that I didn't steal from you. He lies, he's only chayav 1 shvua. But if he said to each individual person, shvua to you, shvua to you, shvua to you, then he's chayav on all 5. But you see, he had to use a separate lashon of shvua. Right? So the same thing in our Mishnah. He has to say iskachi. When he says iskachi, he mekadosh me with this date. Mekadosh me with this date. Each one has a separate transaction. So Rab Shimoni the Amar Hachiyem Shvua l'chol echad ve'echad. So he says it's a shvua to each and every one. Fine. Bezu. Im yesh bekulan shava pruta. When each one has a shava pruta, right? Then, like the Gemara always does, when it says v'chulu, it's not going on that part of the Mishnah. It's going on the next part of the Mishnah. Right, it's going on the last part. Again, when the last part says that if she takes a date and eats it, you have to make sure that at least one of them has a full shava pruta and they don't combine. Question is that going on the first Mishnah, the first case in the Mishnah of hiskachili bezu, or is it going on the case of bezu? Right, so Gemara says, hey, which one's it going on? Ilem areisha, if it's going on the first case, which is hiskachili bezu, where we know that each one has to have a shava pruta. Excuse me. So then my area aicheles. So what's the difference if she ate it? Afila manechas nami. Even if she puts it down. The skachi li bezuka amar. She said, "Be mekadesh me with this one." Right. So we said it when he says skachi li bezu. When he says that to her, that means each one, or at least one of them, needs a shava pruta. Hello, aseifa must be going on the last case. Afila bekamaisa. And even if the first date was worth a pruta, right? It's still kiddushin malva, but that's just a malva, meaning he's giving it to her. He's giving her the date, but he's not finished yet. Right now, she has it, but he says, I'm gonna give you, when I give you all 3 dates, that's when you're gonna be married. So she's basically taking a loan from him and then giving it back and then eating it, right? So how can you say that even the first date's worth a shava pruta? It works. I mean, again, he goes over to the lady and says, be mekadesh me with this and this and this. And he starts handing her dates and she starts popping them into her mouth. So it's not hers until he finishes giving her all 3 dates. Right? So how can you be that she's mekudeshes? It's mekudeshes b'milva, which we'll see in tomorrow's Daf Hashem, the whole sugi of being mekadesh a woman with a loan. Right? So again, every daf we have these interesting terminologies about kashas. He says we have a table, we have meat, and we have a knife. We got nothing to eat. Right? Meaning we have a Mishnah and we have no idea what the Mishnah is talking about. Right? So Rav, that's sort of like tomorrow night if it rains, Nebuch for us, right? We got a table, we got the meat, we got the knife, we got no sukkah. Right? Because it's raining. Yeah. So Rav and Shmuel, Amri Tava, Rav and Shmuel both say La'olam Aresha. They're going on the ratio where he said Hiskachi and Hiskachi. But let me buy Gomer. The Mishnah is saying, let me buy Meneches. It goes without saying that if she takes the date and puts it down, Di Kashava Pruta in Eloi, that if one of the dates is worth a Shava Pruta, then they're married. If not, not. Avo Aicheles, but if she eats it, since she's getting such a quick hana from it, Ema Gomro Makanya Nafsha, maybe in her head she's gomer, she commits in her head that she is selling herself. Meaning, maybe since she gets to eat the date right away, it's what we call in our generation instant gratification. So since she got her instant gratification, maybe she says, okay, even though this date is not worth a shava pruta, but this guy's taking care of me right now so quickly, I'm already willing to marry him, even if it's not worth a shava pruta. Right? So Kamash Malan, what the Gemara is telling you, no, it still needs to be worth a shava pruta. Rav Ami Omar, so that's the Rav and Shmuel say it's going on the ratio. Ravami Amar Lo'ilam HaSeifa. It's going on the Seifa. My Achi Ba'achas Man Shavapruta. What does it mean until one of them is worth a Shavapruta? Achi Ba'achraina Shavapruta. We thought that it means only the first one's worth a Shavapruta. This one is this, but now we're meaning no. He's being Makadasher with a date, and she eats it. Then another date she eats it. The last one has to be a Shavapruta in order for them to be married. Okay. So Amarava Shmamina Midravami Tlas. We see from Arami three different halachas. Shmamina Makadesh b'milva ena mekadeshes. We see he clearly holds that if you makadesh a woman with a loan, she's not married. Now, what does that mean to be makadesh an isha with a loan? Makadesh an isha with a loan. Again, tomorrow's daf will be much more in depth about this. Is if he lent the woman money, and he tells the woman, instead of you paying me back, I'll just marry you, and it's as if I'm giving you your loan, and that's it.
We had that case, and we said it was good.
Yeah. It's a big machlokes whether it's good or not. We're going to see. But the Gemara here is clearly going that it's not. It doesn't go. And the reason why it doesn't work, he's giving her money. The reason why it doesn't work is because that money is considered already given to her. Right? Fine. V'shmami no mekadosh b'milva pruta. And the second thing is that if you mekadosh her with a loan and a pruta, meaning he tells the lady, I'm going to be meichel the loan, and I'm also going to give you a pruta. Right? So Daita pruta, her das is on the pruta, and they're married. Fine, on Tome Beis now. And the third shmami no mois ba'al machayzer, money that was given, it goes back. Meaning, if a guy marries a woman, so he gives her a ring, and then for whatever reason they don't end up getting married, so that money goes back. It's considered like it's the husband's. It's not considered like the wife's, right? What's enough kamina? Right. So if he gives her the money, and then for some reason the Kiddushin got held up, and then she uses some of the money, and then the Kiddushin comes back in. So if you say it's hers, if you say it's her money, so then that's it. So then they're not married because he has to re-give her money. And if it's his money, then okay, now he gave her the money, and then she's married. Right? Did I say it backwards? I think I might have said it backwards. If he gives her the money, yeah, that's correct. So again, but that's enough kamina whether the money goes back to him or not. Okay. Then we have another interesting Gemara. Itmar. So a guy decides to marry his sister. Okay, so why is he marrying his sister? Everybody knows you can't marry your sister. So he gives her a ring. He gives his sister a ring, and he says, "You're marrying me." So what's the deal? So Rav Amar Moyes Chayzer, the money goes back, meaning it can't possibly be a marriage. So therefore, the money goes back to the brother. Well, Amar Moyes Matana. No, the Moyes is a Matana. He doesn't get back the money. What's a pshat in this machlokes? Rav Amar Moyes Chayzer, the money goes back. Adam Yedeya She'ein Kiddushin types in Ba'chaysa. A person knows like that. He can't marry his sister. So what's he doing this for? Right? He's giving her money to watch, and he figures she's going to give it back to him. So why doesn't he just give his sister the money and say, "Can you do me a favor? Watch this ring for me." Because he holds that she's not going to want to do it. So he figures he'll try and convince her to do it with this, right? Fine. But Shmuel is matana. Shmuel says no, it was a matana. So a guy knows that he can't marry his sister, matana, and he puts it in his head that he's going in for a matana. Okay, so matana. Why doesn't he give it to her for matana? Right? She's embarrassed to take money. His sister needs money. He wants to give her money. So what does he do? He says, "Here's some money for you. Hey, I'm marrying you." Right? So if she said, "Oh, you're marrying me, so nice," I'll take the money. Right? Fine. So those are the two. Those are ones. Yeah, that's the two machlokes. Again, a guy's marrying his sister. Shaila is, does he mean it seriously, or does he not mean it? Does he mean it to give her that she should watch it for him and maybe she has to give it back, or did he mean to give her money? Fine. So Masa Ravina, Hamafish Chalosei Kemach. So okay, we need a little bit of background on challah. Right, so challah is after all the trumas and ma'ases are taken off, as we all know, right? Very, very in thing to make challah. So when you mafish challah, you got 5 pounds of challah, and you got to take what we call 5 pounds of Pirach Hazanish. Pirach Chaim no, it's around 2.5 pounds. Anyway, so you have to give it to the kohen, but you only give it to the kohen really once it becomes dough, not before that. The dough doesn't have to rise. For some reason nowadays we wait for the dough to rise, and then they take it off. It really doesn't have to. It's once water gets added to the flour, and that's enough. But
That's all right.
okay,
From the bracha, Mafresh Challah mina Isa. He says just dough. Once it's.
well, it's not everybody says. Not everybody has that gear. So.
Oh, wow! How
Even
about
if you
that?
do, that applies to matzah too. It doesn't
No.
rise. generally.
Gershon is there.
Right, it does apply to matzah. Matzah, they take it off afterwards. Anyways, whatever it is, you certainly can't take it off when it's flour. So let's say, guys, mafresh challah when it's flour. Ain't a challah, it's not challah. The gezel b'yad kohen, right? A big chish. So the kohen who received it is a crook. So I said, "V'amai gezel b'yad kohen." Why is it gezel b'yad kohen? Nema adam yedei she'en mafrishin challah kemach. Why don't we say everybody knows that you can't separate challah from when it's flour? The nasan l'shem matana gave us a matana, meaning the
Does
same way we're
everyone know
saying.
that? Didn't someone just on the doc say they didn't know that for sure?
Correct. So, but back then they knew it, right? Yesterday also, what we saying yesterday's out that everybody knows? Everybody knows that it's a derabanan to marry a chalutza. I don't think I knew, but I'm just
But why is it Gezel B'yad Kohen? Why is that?
because it wasn't right for him to take it. He can't take it. It's not.
Somebody
It's not
gave it to
challah.
him, so
So that's the question. That's exactly the Gemara's kasha, Peretz. It was a matana. Why don't we say it's a matana? Same way the guy marries his sister. That shita says he doesn't mean to marry his sister. He meant to give his sister money. Same thing here. Why don't we say that this guy, he knows that it can't be challah, and he's giving the guy the kohen money. Why is he a crook? I know what you're asking, Peretz. Even if he didn't mean that, why is it? What's the kohen's fault? He took. The guy brought it to his house, and he took it. He's supposed to know what it is.
I'm not yotzer. My chiyuv is still challah on the challah or my dough. I was never paid to the dough.
Right. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. But yeah. So anyway. Whatever it is, so why don't we just say that everybody knows you don't take off challah when it's flour? I mean, I guess back then everybody knew this. Right? And then he really meant it as matanas. And when it says no, Shani Awesome did not churva mine. And what's gonna happen is gonna be a disaster from it. Why? Because Zimnin de Isla the Kayan Pachas Michamash Ruvayim Kemach. Sometimes the Kayan is gonna have he's gonna have less than 5/4, which means 1 1/4 of Kemach. If you see the Rashi is a long Rashi here, going through exactly how you get the Shir Challah for that. Like we said in practical, the Shir Chazanish is a little less than 5 pounds. Reb Chaim knows a little more than 2.5 pounds. And how you translate it into grams for all the sourdough people, I don't know. It makes me nuts. How many is in
But that's
grams?
dry, right? The dry flour weight. That's what you're talking about. 5 pounds.
Yeah.
Meaning anything 5 pounds of flour, no matter what else you add afterwards.
Correct.
Not the bucket of dough when you mix it. Now it weighs 5 pounds.
No, 5 pounds of flour. Right. So what's going to happen here? This kohen has less than a shear, and then he's going to mix in this flour, which is going to make it more than a shear. And the kohen's going to say, "Oh, everything's taken care of because the part that's putting it over the 5 pounds. Let's just call it 5 pounds. The thing that's putting it over 5 pounds was already chalad. Right. So since it was already chalad, I don't have to take off challah. So essentially, though, he does have to take off challah. So it's going to come out that he's going to be eating tevel, right? Sometimes the kohen's going to he's going to have less, And then he's going to knead it, K-N-E-A-D, together, because Savar, Nesakne Sase. And he's going to think, oh, my Isa, my dough was fixed because I never had a shear. He's going to end up eating tevel. So that's why here we say that the guy is a ganav. Because we don't want it. So the Gemara, we don't want this happening. So the Gemara says, but you said everybody knows that a person doesn't separate kemach. So the kohen will know that. So why do you think he's going to mess up? So the Gemara says, Yedea ve'ena yedea. He knows and he doesn't know. Yedea shein mafresh chala kemach. He knows that you don't separate chala from flour. Ve'ena yedea the savar tamayu. He thinks, why don't you separate? Why don't you separate chala? Is because mishum tircha de kohen, because of the tircha of the kohen, right? Because you want to be able to give a dough to the kohen. You don't want to give him flour. Then he has to go make it into. If he wants to benefit from it, he has to go make it into bread. The tircha de kohen achil say he's Michael the tircha, right? Here he's Michael the tircha, right? So therefore, he doesn't understand the reasoning behind it. So therefore, it might come out of churba. So Gemara says, okay, but the havi truma. So then it'd be like truma, right? So why don't we tell the kohen, instead of telling the kohen he's a ganav, he has to give it back. So tell him, hey buddy, you could keep it. You just have to take off trumas and you have to take off challah. Why don't we just tell him that? Didn't we learn in the Mishnah? If somebody takes a truma from a flower pot that has a hole in it to a flower pot that doesn't have a hole in it, meaning a flower pot that has a hole in it needs truma deraisa. A flower pot that doesn't have a hole in it needs a truma derabanan. So you can't take from the truma derabanan on the truma deraisa because it's not required. The truma is not required. So basically, you're separating trumas and maises from something that doesn't need the separation. So if that's what happens, if somebody takes off truma from a flower pot with a hole to cover the truma on a flower pot without a hole, truma, it's truma. But it's so we consider it truma, but we tell the kohen you can keep it, but it's still tevel. You have to take off trumas and maises from that thing. So how come there we tell him this, and why? And here we don't tell him this. So our answer is betray money tzais. When it's in two different utensils, the kohen's going to listen to you. Because you can understand, you can tell him, he took truma from one flower pot onto another flower pot, and the truma doesn't work. So the guy can understand that, right? But in one utensil, he's not going to listen. He's going to say, I don't understand. Right? What's the problem? It's true. It was taken off. It was taken off. So since he's going to have a difficulty understanding it, therefore we're afraid of churban. Now we're going to have the repeat Gemara. Just the opposite way. This was that we're afraid the kohen's going to mess up. Now the Gemara is saying we're afraid the Yisrael is going to mess up. The kohen is going to listen, right? Because kohanim are more educated. Because the balabayas is going to think, oh, I took off challah from my flour. Givaldik, right? Person's going to ask, you took off challah? He said, yeah, I took it off from flour, right? And then he's going to think he took it off, and then he's going to end up eating tevel. Right? It says, why would anybody do that? We know, everybody knows that you don't separate challah from kemach. When answer yedeh ve'ena yedeh, he knows and he doesn't know. Yedeh shein mafrishin challah kemach. He knows that you don't take off challah from kemach. Ve'ena yedeh, he doesn't know. The savar time of he thinks, what's the reason why you can't take off challah from flour? Is mishum tircha de kohen, because then you don't want the kohen to have to go make himself challah or whatever bread. So tircha the kohen kibbulei, but the kohen took the flour from me, and he's very happy to take it. So what's the problem? So it's going to be, Yisrael is going to mess up. Okay, so Gemara asks if that be truma v'yasa v'yitum. Okay, so let it be truma, and let the Yisrael go back and take off again challah. Why can't the kohen keep it? If you take off from a flower pot on that has no hole to a flower pot that has a hole, truma, it's truma v'yasa v'yitum, and he has to take off another truma. One answers, we said, no, he's a yid. People can understand the truma business from one pot onto another pot. they can't understand it from within one pot. Okay, so Gemara says, and they won't listen to one pot. But Tanan Atayrim Kishas, let's say a guy takes truma from cucumbers or gourds, v'nimtza mara, and it was bitter, meaning it was bad. He took off truma and it ended up being bad. Right? Avatiach, he took off from a watermelon. V'nimtza seruach, and he found that it was decayed. Truma, it's considered truma. The yachsav yitrim, he has to take off truma again. The reason why he has to take off truma again is because he gets a knas that he should have, before giving, have some respect. Before you give off your stuff to a kohen, make sure, before you take off your trumas and the maisus to the Levi, make sure that it's quality stuff. You didn't do it, so therefore it's still considered truma, but you got to go back and do truma again. Oh, but that's in one pot. And we're telling him truma, and you got to go back and do another truma. So you want to answer, Shani Yasam, Midaraisa truma ma'alya. Midaraisa, it's a truma ma'alya. Right? It does work. It was just the Chachamim were upset at it. But the Rabbi Lloyd, Rabbi Lloyd, how do you know if you do give truma from bad fruit onto good fruit that the truma is a truma? And you should not do a chet when you do truma. So what does that mean? You're not doing a chet when you separate truma? Of course you're not doing a chet. You separated your truma. What does the pasuk mean? You're not getting a chet when you separate your truma, right? Meaning your chel means your fats, doesn't mean meat. It means so these things. Mikam the Torah and Ara leyafash truma. So we see from this that the pasuk means that it's considered truma. It's considered truma midaraisa, but you did epis because you should have been more careful and make sure you give something legit to the kohen. Fine. That's the end of that sugya. So that's the end of that sugya about confusing things. Let's try and do to the two dots. It goes pretty fast. It's only 9:15 anyways. All right. So Amar Rava. Now going back on the Mishnah, we had a machlokes between Rav and Shmuel and Ravami. If the last case in the Mishnah is going on the first part of the Mishnah when he says to her hiskachi li bezu, or is it going on the bezu? So Amar Rava, on Tamid Aleph now. Laishanu elad Amar la bezu. Right? When did we say that the dates don't combine? Right? That's when he says bezu. And then she ate every one. As he said, bezu. She ate every one. So she's not married until at least one of them is worth of Shava Pruta. Right? Aval Amar la be'elu. But if he said to her, I'm giving you all these dates, marry me with them. Afilu achelas nami mikudeshes. Even if she eats them one by one, she's mikudeshes. Kika achla medinav sheka achla. Because what is she doing? She's eating her own dates. Right? So basically, Rav is saying it depends what the terminology was with this when she's eating it. If it was bezu. So then you need to make sure one of the dates has a shava pruta. If it's be'elu, then even if she eats it, it's fine because he gave her all those dates, which combined is a shava pruta. Tanya Kavasei the Rava. It's a pretty long Tanya Kavasei. Iskachi li be'aloin be'rimain u be'egois. A guy tells a lady, I want you to be mekadosh me with article teaches an aloin is an acorn. A rimain is a pomegranate, and of course they teach egois. This is a Rosh Hashanah sugya. How do they teach egois, right? Because egois is a gematria chet. You can't have it on Rosh Hashanah, right? So they I would see maybe how do they teach it? They teach it as a nut. Wonderful. Everybody we say like it's a walnut, right? And all other nuts are okay. Art Scroll mailed it in here. They just call it just a nut, right? So. But anyway, so the guy says to her, be mekadosh me with these three. Or he says, be mekadosh me with these. And he gives it to her one at a time. So if they're all shava prutas, mekudeshes. And if not, ain't mekudeshes. She's not mekudeshes. Bezu. But if he says this and this and this, if all of them have shava pruta, she's mekudeshes. Vim lav. And if not, ain't mekudeshes. She's not mekudeshes. Right, so Rashi discusses why these are. He was saying the same psak. Why couldn't you say it together? Okay, bezu natalte v'achalte. If he says this, she took it and ate it, and then he says bezu natalte v'achalte. He took it and she ate it. V'ay bezu, and then he says and this one, and a mekadeshes, because she's eating it, right? He says here, be makajri a date. She quickly eats it. Another date, she eats it. So then ein mekadeshes she ba'achas men shava pruta. So one of them is worth Shavuot Pruta. So now the Gemara goes through this brisa. Hi ba'alon beriman be'egos hechidami. What's the case? Ilema da'amar la oy ba'alon oy beriman oy be'egos. Maybe he said it's with this one or this one or this one. Maybe yesh b'kulan Shavuot Pruta mikudeshes. If they all have Shavuot Pruta, it's mikudeshes. Well, how could that be? Va'oy ka'amar. He said oy, right? Be mekadesh me with this or this or this. Right?
Is there a difference? Tell me what's the difference between if it's three of the same min, the three dates, or here is three different minim?
I don't think it makes a difference.
There's no difference.
As far as I see, there's no difference. Right? I don't think there's a difference. Just that's the case here, I think. All right. Okay, good. So then Re'ela ba'alon u'berimun u'be'egos. Must be saying with the alon and the rimun u'be'egos. Hainu bezu bezu bezu. So then that's with this, and this, which is the next case. So that can't be. Elalav da'amar la be'elu. Must be, he said, with these. Right? And then he gave it all to her. So therefore they would combine. So the Gemara says, "Amadigatani seifa," meaning so that fits into what Rava said about the word elu. Right? Even if she's eating it, they all combine because he's giving it all to her. Right? So the Gemara asks, "Amadigatani seifa, Aisha Amar lo iskachi li be'elu," but the seifa says, "Or you should be mekadesh me with these mechlal de reisha la be'elu askina." Must be that the reisha is not by elu. Right? Meaning, the Seifa, where's the Seifa? Right, but the Seifa does say a case of Elu. So if the Seifa says a case of Elu, so then the Aloin and Riman and Ego's case is not talking about Elu. Mechlal de Reisha Labe Elu Skina. So my answer is Prusha Kamafarish. No, the end of the price is explaining the first part of the price. Iskachi Libe Elu, Ba'aloin, Beriman of Ego's Ketzad. What does it mean? What's the case of how to be Makadish with them? If you're going to Amrullah, Iskachi Libe Elu, be Makadish me with these. Fine, the Gemara says, the Gemara says, V'gatani Seifa, Bezu nataltoi v'achaltoi. If he says with this one, she takes it, she eats it. If yesh b'achas men shava pruta mekudeshes. If one of them has a shava pruta, she means mekudeshes. V'im lav ena mekudeshes. V'ilu reisha, and the reisha loy kamaflik bein achelas l'maneches. The reisha doesn't differentiate between eating and putting it down. Shmami no kol echad damar la be'elu. Anytime you say the word be'elu, ki ka'achla min nafsha ka'achla. When she's eating it, she's eating her own, and therefore, as long as all together, all the dates are bigger than a pruta, then that's it. That's shmamina. That's a raya that you see that anytime you say with the word elu, he's giving it all to her, and she therefore, as long as they're all combined, that's it. I want to ask now, Akasha. Hanichalamando amar my ad sheyeh ba'achas men shava pruta, ad sheyeh ba'achroina shava pruta. Right, until the last one has a shava pruta, right? That's what we said on a blot ago. So here too it means that one of them has to be worth a shava pruta, meaning the last one, the last one. But according to Rav and Shmuel, it says that this thing, that if you give it to her and she eats it, it's going on the reisha, it's trichalei, and you need to teach the chiddush that when she's eating it, right? Here, it's just saying a klal, meaning he says just a statement of the Kiddushin, right? Prati like a chashuv. He's not saying any sort of prat. So the answer is Hamani, Rebbe, the Amr. So we're saying no, that's Rebbe. Loishna kazayis v'loishna kazayis prata. It doesn't make a difference if the person says a kazayis. Right, or a person, or he doesn't say kazayas, it's all considered a prat, right? This is talking about if a guy, a kohen, starts thinking about how do you call it? Pigel. Right. So you need to think about that. He's gonna think about that he's a kazayas. He's gonna shech the animal. He's gonna eat a kazayas of food, not in the proper time, not in the proper place. Right? So Mamela, it doesn't make a difference if he says kazayas or not, or it doesn't say kazayas. It's considered as two separate things. It's considered two separate kazasim, and therefore he's chayiv. Right? And that's what we're gonna say. That's what we're gonna say here too. Even if the guy doesn't specifically say that each one is separate, it's going to be considered separate. I hope that makes sense. As I'm saying it, I'm not sure it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense. I'm not explaining it properly, but whatever. But anyways, we'll stop over here. That's pretty good. A blot and a half in an hour and count. That's a record.
I'm saying, I was just about to say, Jacob, very impressive.
I must have muted
Yeah.
everybody.
Eli Stefanski got nothing on us.
That's right. That's right.
Jacob Lemaiser looks a little vague from the paper, but what are we possibly for tomorrow night?